Great day in the morning. Welcome, Bravehearts, Urbanites, and SEQ Nation. Today's Coaches Chronicles, this particular segment will be to address the responses that I have been getting to those that I have been getting from those who feel like they are not adequate enough to be mentoring coaches. To be a mentor, to be a leader, to be a life coach, it's all about your character and your ability to relate. Now, understand society would have you believe that you have to be degreed or certified with some sort of with a particular level of theory in order to practice. I stand to challenge that. And mainly because DC Urban Mentors, we are an affinity club that truly believe in connecting and restoring what society would consider the lost boys. We are not aiming to be therapists, even though I have to say that we are attracting those with degrees in psychology, and we are attracting the therapeutic intellects. So that's not to say we won't welcome you. But me personally, as one of the co-founders of the project, I have my eyes set on those that society say are worthless because I beg to differ. Especially my people's, the men of my people. Let's say it like that, yeah. The cultural elements of my people, it has been over 300 years the strategy to destroy our men. So I have conversations with men who understand that they have something that they could possibly offer to the project. They also identify themselves when I speak of the demographics of fellas that we are aiming to connect with and help. But lo and behold, we venture into our conversation eventually reaches the point where they say, well, I don't think I have what it takes. It's a great commitment. I'm not sure that I have the impact to speak, articulate. I lack professionalism. I didn't finish high school. I have not a lick of college. And believe it or not, those are the ones that I want. You are enough. And I had to learn that. And what's amazing is that all the doubts that I hear, my men, I hear you. And interestingly enough, now I'm not able to say this to all of them at the time that the conversation is taking place. So I figured I would use today's segment to speak collectively to say that I so relate. I second guess. I don't think I'm worthy because I do not have a degree. I'm certified, but for the most part, I've taught myself. I've indulged in the academic hemisphere of community colleges as well as at the university level, online and in the physical classroom. And because I'm an innate learner, I've taught myself more than I've learned in any setting of higher education. Now, that's not to say that higher education, formal higher education, is bogus. But that is to say that it is not for everyone. That is to say that I am very glad that I did experience it, because I do know firsthand what I am talking about with regards to me. And I do know that there have been many times where I have paid close to $2,000 for one class. One class. I am damn near $70,000 in debt with regards to academic pursuit and still have no degree. I don't have a degree. I don't have a traditional degree in anything. Now, I have to say, because I've attended a smorgasbord of classes, I have a wealth of knowledge. I understand the concept. But what's interestingly enough is that if you do not complete the entire course, you don't get a degree. You don't get half of a degree or three or a third of a degree. You don't, but you still got to pay that money back. You still have to pay the money back. And there's one class in particular that just tipped the scale. This particular class was the game changer for me. Now, by this time, I was already maybe 50,000 in debt with educational loans and books and lab fees and whatever else they wanted to throw at me. And for the sake of knowledge and wanting to get ahead, figuring that I was in hot pursuit of happiness and stability, I kept going. Even though the knowledge of me being $50,000 in debt had me shaking in my boots, because it's like, am I ever going to pay all this off? Okay, so for the sake of education, because society has conditioned me to believe that the more I know, the more I'll get paid, never addressing the fact that there is the infamous blacklist, there is the infamous do not hire list. Wondering why you submit resume after resume after resume and not one person calls you back. Knowing that you have a wealth of experience, you are totally qualified for the position, and nobody's calling you back. They don't address that part. They don't address the part that you are going to go and get a degree, a double major, and you're going to get out in the workforce to realize that that ain't even what you want to do. You still got to pay that money back. Now your degree is completely worthless. I know so many people who are not working in their degreed field. I know some people who got a degree, double major, got a degree, and actually work like in retail. They still have to pay that loan back. So this class was a game changer. It was marketing. I am a marketer by nature. So when I went into the class, I was super excited. I was expecting to learn all of the secrets, all of the trade secrets. I was expecting to have some type of smorgasbord of technique provided to me so that I could, once I left my realm of theory, could apply and practice appropriately with regards to what I already felt in my heart I was deemed to do. This was a class of all careered people. So I worked 8 hours, and then I got to class at 6 and got out of there. Yeah, 6:30, got out of there about 9:30. An entire quarter, $1,850. Not only could the professor not take control of his classroom, there were opinions flying all over the place. And that's when I determined that folks who have tenure think they know everything. And then it became the battleground for opinion. It became the battleground for folks who worked in marketing for years and they knew more than everybody else. I mean, there were even students who had the audacity to pose themselves more knowledgeable than the professor, which I think he kind of shrunk. Yeah, I think that's what he did. So the only valuable thing that I got out of that experience was the textbook, which I still have. I still have my textbook. And I refer to my textbook, and this was years ago. That's when I began to analyze what society calls formal education. That's when I began to look for ways to learn without it costing me so damn much. That's when the library became my best friend. That's when I realized that all I had to do was secure the curiosity for a particular subject and just go to the information desk and say, can you point me to the books with regards to this? And then the internet started to boom and do its thing. So then I became deeply curious with what was out there in cyberspace as it surrounded what it is that I was learning or wanted to learn or wanted to find more about. Whatever it is that I was investigating or felt like I needed to be in front of the curve. And what I found out is that I learned more from my self-studies than ever in this structured, canned learning environment that they say you must have in order for you to be deemed knowledgeable on that particular subject. I paced myself. I made regular trips to the library. All this free knowledge, and I have to say, it outside of Barnes and Noble, and I am particular, so yes, it is Barnes and Noble. I will endorse them from the tops of the mountain. Yeah, I will. There's no other bookstore like it as far as I'm concerned, other than, don't get me wrong, other than the antique, vintage styled, Harry Potter styled bookstores. So it's either, if we're talking about a commercial chain, it's Barnes and Noble. But then all the smaller mom and pop bookstores, I love them regardless. There is no competition when it comes to, because they're all individually unique and have their own flair. And then they have some of the most vintaged books. I'm talking about books from like the 19th and 20th century, like real old knowledge, that throwback type of knowledge. And so I like them regardless. I just get all giddy the minute I walk through the door. But if I have to, we have to talk about commercial chains, it is definitely Barnes and Noble outside of Amazon. But Amazon is virtual, and now I am getting to the point where I don't want to do any business over the internet because I don't know enough about what lurks in the shadows of the World Wide Web. And I know that sending my information through these invisible airways is very, very dangerous because it can be intercepted. Versus when I go into Barnes and Noble and give them cash, it's a done deal. There is none of that, lurky jerky type of stuff, in the midst of getting credit card numbers and invading your space and doing the virtual rapings. I hate virtual violations. I hate them with a passion because it is so many that have no clue about this infamous web. I don't particularly like to fill out applications. I don't want to put any of my information on the web. Sometimes I even feel leery about these videos and electronic communication. And I'm getting off track right now, but it will all come full circle. It will all come into play in a little bit. So when I hear that I'm not good enough, I immediately relate because that's the way I feel with me. But I still press on because I know deep down in my heart, I believe that I am meant to share an experience as an educator of the educators, especially the mentors and community leaders. There's a segment of social and emotional intelligence that we are missing that would not only make our everyday work more robust, but it will begin to spread as common knowledge. For so long, especially among urban folk, the imbalance of our emotions, downright trauma, 302 years. And it actually dates back way beyond that. But I'll just say 302 with regards to the infamous speech in Jamestown. Is it Jamestown? And I'm going off the top of the dome right now, so. And I refuse to give his name the spotlight, so I just call it the infamous guarantee of 1712. Now, if you was to go and research slavery and year 1712, it will come up and you will be able to relate to what it is that I'm saying if you don't already know. And as one of DC Urban Mentors, this is something that you definitely should be familiar with. And when it's spoken of indirectly, you directly know what it's talking about. Because what we believe is that you won't know where you're going unless you know where you've been. Our history is rich with instructions for us to be able to launch off of. We just won't go and check it out. We won't go and investigate. We won't critically think. We won't validate. Hence, all of the mixed emotions and ill will and wrongful assumptions and just downright damaging mindsets. I think the urban people, I think we're the only element on American soil that does not truly realize how powerful our emotions and thoughts are. I'm living proof that being emotionally assassinated will kill you. Now, of course, I'm not physically dead, regardless of my attempts. I'm not any longer emotionally dead either. It was a long road to recovery. And see, society also wants you to believe that your addictions could be physical, not emotional. I was emotionally addicted to feeling bad. I used to self-sabotage myself quite a bit. And I'm not completely out of the woods. Don't ever, because once an addict, always an addict. So I walked for a long time being an addict of ill will. And not towards anyone else, but towards myself. I had tons of self-inflicted wounds as a result of just being mismanaged emotionally. So when your emotions are out of whack, it increases the heart flow, it rises the temperature. And my stress levels, they were quiet, intimate stress levels. I could sit in front of you and be stressing. Because I am an introvert, it would all be internal and you wouldn't even know that I was stressing. But my insides were cooking, actually pressure cooking my insides. Now I have to say, the grace of my Heavenly Father, I do not at this particular moment suffer from high blood pressure. But even my aura would seep out of my pores. And I've only had 2 people in my entire life that knew when I was under pressure just by being around me. Like, you smell funny. Are you stressing? Only 2 people. Everybody else would judge it wrongly. They wouldn't understand what was going on, had no clue. No clue. And only until I started to get into, human behavior and just trying to understand my quirkiness and what was going on with me and why I always wanted to die. It's like therapist after therapist after therapist. Always trying to find the answers. And eventually, they all started to string together to make sense. But then it's like, how do you explain it to somebody else? How do you give someone the short version of being emotionally, because emotions is something that you can't see. And for so long, we have been conditioned to just ignore the emotional value of yourself. I've been, I can say collectively, we have been conditioned to ignore our emotions, to suppress them, to sacrifice them. Especially Black folk, your emotions don't matter, and you better not show any. And probably like for the last 100 years, our emotions began to transform into anger. And fear. Now I think fear was already, fear was always the objective. To be able to mentor and lead has nothing to do with your formal education. The fact that you did not graduate from high school is actually beneficial to me from the way I see it. It's not a strike against you as far as I'm concerned. Because I do know that there are some out there who are not conducive to group learning, nor are they all for learning through history books that deliberately left out their ability to identify and learn about their ancestry and their culture. I also know that there are some human souls that are completely, utterly allergic to the industrial mindset. Group learning. See, you won't know where you're going unless you know where you've been. Go and investigate public schooling. Understand how public schooling came into effect in the first place. Understand that it was America's attempt to educate the masses so that you could go into the workforce to put them on the map industrially. So there are souls out there that do not relate to that particular environment of learning. But what makes it tragic is that our society never offered up another alternative to learning until many of our people just decided they didn't want to have anything to do with it. And I know this because I was one of them. I'm almost sure if it wasn't for my ex-husband, I probably wouldn't even have a high school diploma right now. But believe it or not, I have never had anybody ask me for it. Now, that's not to say that they didn't call the school or see if I was on the list to see if I actually graduated or not. But that particular piece of paper, I have never had to pull out and show anybody. But all that I've learned, as far as I'm concerned, all that I learned that would give me or that I would consider of value, I taught myself. I was diligent enough to go and put myself in front of the material and absorb it. I wanted to absorb it, so I made sure that I had a smorgasbord of information to pull from. And see, I tell a lot of the young kids, a lot of the young ones that I talk to, and I call them kids, even though right at this moment, they're young adults. It's not like they're babies. They're young adults to the point where they're either about to graduate infamous high school or they are contemplating college. Where it's like you don't have to go into this enormous debt to learn something. The libraries are free. The libraries are free. Even though I have to say right now, Black folks seem to be using the library like the socialized cafe, which burns me to pieces. But okay, you're in there. So, I mean, I guess I'm settling. Because what would be elaborate is for me to walk in there and see every Black person with some type of something in their face and writing and taking notes and absorbing the knowledge versus hanging around in front of the PCs, laughing and joking and giggling and carrying on. I went into the library day before yesterday. No, it might have been three. It might be three, about 3 days ago. I've never heard the library be so noisy. There was a time when you couldn't even raise your voice above a certain level. And if you had to have a back and forth continuation of a conversation, you had to go outside because other people were studying. That wasn't the case that day. I mean, and it was crowded. And I mean crowded. So I was happy that it was crowded because I saw all these urban faces all over the place, but they were rowdy and they were noisy. It was like, are you kidding me? You all are not absorbing and utilizing and taking advantage of the fact that you're in a space with all this knowledge. So learning can be free. Learning should be free. To be disciplined within oneself to say, I'm going to go and find out more about this. You do not need the expensive price tag of a university degree to teach yourself what it is that you need to know. So I think I'm going to start asking my mentors or my potentials. I'm going to start asking those that I think or feel have major potential to master the craft of mentoring. how much they actually desire to help someone else become emotionally balanced. And that does not mean that you have to take up the role of being someone's dad. It doesn't mean that you have to babysit them, look after them. It doesn't mean any of that. What it means is that you take up the commitment to, whenever you are engaged in conversation with your constituent, that you actively listen. Actively listen. Which is another segment that I'm going to get into altogether, because it burns my soul for me to be on the phone or have a conversation with someone who is not fully engaged in the conversation. Because immediately I will think I could be doing something else. You are not about to waste my life with all that clanking in the background. You can't even give me the courtesy to get somewhere quiet so that I don't have to compete with what it is that you're saying and all this background noise. But believe it or not, to be a mentoring coach, all you have to do is pay attention and ask questions. Those are the only two elements that you are required to understand and maneuver properly. All that extra degree hoopla, philosophy, dibble and dabble in the realms of psychology, logic, all of those things that they want to can and package up and string it out for an entire semester and charge you an arm, a leg, an eyeball, and an ear for. Nope. Being a mentor or a coach takes character. The same character that you were born with. You don't have to learn how to be a mentor. Now, you will probably have to learn how to maneuver technique and how to make sure that you engage in conversation properly and how to make sure that you ask the right questions. But to tell you the truth, if you ask someone a question, the power of suggestion is going to take a mindset, a life of its own. Because if you ask me a question that I don't have the answer to, I am going to mull over that until I find the answer. Especially if it's a question that I've already been asking myself. To be a mentoring coach, all you need is the understanding of self and the ability to ask engaging questions. Now, that's to say, because if you are a proactive listener, if you are someone who really truly relates and you stand firm in understanding, like you seek to understand first, then your compassion and your empathy and all those other elements that coaches and mentors hold, they will solidify themselves. Because for one, you seek to understand yourself better, which is going to allow you to relate. So check this out. For years, especially in all through my 20s and maybe until my mid 30s, I used to blame my parents for everything. And I mean everything. Everything that went wrong in my life, it was my parents' fault. It was my parents' fault because I felt like they didn't love me or give me the foundation that I thought they should have given me. I felt slighted. And seeing as that I had been struggling and battling with inadequate and bruised and assassinated emotions since I was 6, I blamed them for that too. I blamed the violation even being able to take place was because they were not watchful on their watch. For years, it used to be I was 6 years old. If somebody had any interest in Thea, their eye would have been on Thea, and the violation wouldn't have been able to take place. Not until I got into my adult life and I became a sucky parent. And I really truly think that life had it be that way so that I could begin to relate. Because not until my parenting skills were challenged and I missed the mark after mark after mark after mark, not until I became this major disappointment in my children's life where I was able to understand that all the stuff that I blame my parents for wasn't even real authentic blame. And everything that I wanted to make about me, that they didn't love me, they didn't do this and that and the third, it wasn't about me. It wasn't about me at all. It might have seemed that way because I was on the outside looking in. But they were struggling with their own ability just to be, just to live, just to survive and sustain. They wasn't sure about it either. They wasn't sure about it. And my parents were older by the time I got here. My mom was like 36. Now, granted, my dad was a lot younger than my mom, but they were still both like in their 30s. And me and my brothers, it's 10 years between us. And my mom tells me all the time, I was so not expecting you to be here. I wasn't expecting you to be here. You know, even to the point where it was like, I wasn't even sure if I was going to keep you. Your daddy begged me. I was grown to find that out. I was already grown. Had already had my 3 children, had already taken on the badge to say, fuck the world. I had already reached that point when I found that out. But then I started to contemplate, how is it that I can no longer say he didn't love me if he begged my mother to keep me? So him not being around when I was growing up is circumstantial, all based on circumstances that had nothing to do with me. Nothing. Not once did it compromise his love. Just because somebody is not around does not mean they don't love you. As a matter of fact, 9 times out of 10, they probably will love you more. And that might sound a little weird to some people, especially to the custodial parents who feel all burdened down that they are the ones who life stuck them with to raise the children. It's amazing how those who are privileged to raise the children don't even recognize their privilege. It's baffling to me. But I said all of that to say that not until I was already over 40, down and out. When I say down and out, I'm talking about down and out. Not a damn penny to my name. Walking that line of poverty, the only place I had to go was to my parents. Now, life and destiny would have it that I would eventually get to be up under my dad to see how he is and how he lives. And just his aura taught me so much. And it wasn't like we had to go through this big old formal conversation of hashing shit out and apologizing about stuff. No, just the fact that life allowed me to be in his space so that I could just view him is priceless. To realize that he's the jokester, I never knew that growing up. So I have bashed and lashed out at being poverty stricken quite a bit. But yesterday I entered into a course, which is, as a matter of fact, the link to sign up for the course, which I am recommending all mentors, especially if you are a mentor leader, DCUrbanMentors.blogspot.com. It is the first link in the right pane, in the right pane. Click it and go and check out the course. The first 4 segments of the course is free. The very first segment of the course focuses on gratitude. And yesterday I went through the first part of it that focused on gratitude, and it was so moving and amazing that I just could not maintain my bliss, because everything that I would misconstrue as being alienating, now I'm able to view it in a different light, and it's I can't even think of I don't even know what word. I don't know. It relieves a lot of pressure, because what I know for a fact is that if there is no other reason to justify me being poverty stricken, if there's no other goodness that comes out of me being broke, the 2 things that I know for a fact is that not having any funds allow me to move back in with my daddy and learn him and see him and just kind of gain completeness as a result of just being around him. Somebody's presence, you don't have to say nothing, believe it or not. And as a matter of fact, those who figure like they got to be yapping their gums every moment of the day works my nerve. But just to be around you, just to hear you giggle, hear you laugh. My daddy likes to whistle and hum. So, just to hear that is comforting. And the second thing is, being broke allows you to relate to the struggle. It damn near demands the respect of it. It allowed me to look at those with less in a different light, because now I'm one of them. I am one of the brokenhearted. I am one of the down and out. I am one that is constantly ridiculed and misjudged as being unproductive. Yeah. Which is the furthest from the truth. Such the furthest from the truth. To have a conversation with me is to know me. And then, because I am such I'm such a complexity. I know I'm a complexity. You have to be bountiful in conversations with Thea in order to know Thea. And then even then, so just know that just by your mere nature, you have been deemed a mentoring coach. Just by your nature. Because there is someone out there that you are destined to have a conversation with that will put them on a totally different path from the path that they was on prior to having this conversation with you. And a mentoring coach, your power is in your conversation. Your power is in your ability to listen and ask questions. That's all. That's all. And hanging with DC Urban Mentors, you're going to learn and be groomed to do that, because that's what we do. We make sure that our mentors understand the strategy of listening and asking powerful questions. And it's not something that we particularly sit you in a classroom and teach you. We groom and guide each other as a result of having engaging conversations with each other. So just by being part of the club, it's going to rub off on you. What they say, you can pretty much judge your level of productivity by the 5 people that you hang around. Something like that. I can't really get it right at the moment, but I read it somewhere. Like, I can pretty much benchmark my level of productivity with regards to the 5 folks that I converse with the most. And believe it or not, I don't have 5 that I routinely converse with the most, because I speak to a lot of guys, and I speak to them some more frequently than others. But some, like my best friend, we don't talk all the time, but every single conversation that we have is highly engaging. And I am talking about highly engaging. We went to high school together. We're both like over 40. So we have learned to critique our ability to converse with one another. I think that is one of my most greatest assets at this moment. I don't have a lot of physical assets. All of mine is eternal, internal. If I was to die today or tomorrow, believe me, I would die with no physical assets at all other than my books and my notes, which I wonder. Sometimes I wonder about that. When I do die, I wonder where all of my knowledge and research and content, I wonder where it's all going to go. Because I can't say right at this particular moment that I have an actual bloodline family member that would even look at anything that I have as of value. Now, those who are in the industry of coaching and mentoring will probably look through here and be like, wow. But family, they don't really know what I'm into. So I wonder what they would do with it. If I was in a car accident and it took my life, I wonder if they would just box all this stuff up and throw it in the trash. I wonder what they would do with it. I really do. What was the movie? And I'm going to end it on this note. I can't remember her name. There was a movie about an introverted photographer. She stood as a nanny, and to let folk tell it, she was one of the most meanest nannies ever. But she took tons of photos. And not until she died did they even realize it was that in depth. Because she never said anything about it. She never spoke about it. No one in her family knew anything about the artistic value of her. Gosh, what is her name? And like I say, I'm speaking off of the dome, so I don't have any notes or anything in front of me, so I don't remember what her name is. Oh, well, I guess her name is not as important as her story. And the story and the moral of the story is that I would like for my conversations with my potentials to not be as flighty as I don't have what it takes. Because for some reason, something tells me it's like, okay, if you're having a conversation with me, 9 times out of 10, you do have what it takes. Because for one, I don't do the small talk. And for 2, I am not going to acknowledge you as a mentor if something in here doesn't strike me to do so. I'm very keen on my intuition and my ability to see beyond the surface. I'm so not a physical, superficial type person. Your tone of voice, your mannerisms, what it is that you say, what it is you do not say, how it is that you say it, what it is that you smile about, joke about, don't joke about, what it is that you're serious about, the questions that you ask me, the questions that you ask yourself, the way that you view the world, the way that you perceive the world, the way that you judge the world. I pay attention to all of that just by what it is that you communicate. I'm just built that way. So if I initiate the futuristic suggestion that you have key material, quality, substance, character, potentiality to perfectly fit in this role, I don't take that too lightly. And I don't offer it up to everyone. But everybody doesn't know that about me. They don't know that this is the approach from which I drive. Well, looking at this, you may begin to know now. But just by looking at me or having just one or two conversations with me, you wouldn't realize that this is one of my strengths. I know this is one of my strengths. So I guess I'm just kind of clearing the way to say that, hey, folks, this is one of my strengths. If I offer this up to you, believe me, I feel, sense, see, there is something in you that leads me to believe that this opportunity should be presented to you. Then I just want to say, well, just try it out. But that sounds kind of weird because you're already a mentor. The fact that you haven't acknowledged it yet is where, excuse me, is where the gap is. And I understand that too, because walking into the role of being a leader or being the official chief of a project, I still have to get used to that. My best friend even had to tell me yesterday, he's like, this is you. This is so you. I was in a moment of second guessing, like, I so don't have what it takes. Who am I? I can't do this. And it's like, yeah, you can. Actually, you really, really can. Just stop thinking about all of what you can't do and just do it. If you can't do it, that the reason why you feel you can't do it is because you haven't tried it yet. Because I'm sure if you would try it, then you would realize that you could, and all of this would be squashed. So, damn near an hour long, unraveling emotions and just kind of laying the thoughts out there on the line, holding firm to my segments of the Coach's Chronicle is going to be the transparent me. It's my moment to stand in the element of vulnerability. Am I flawless? Hell no. I got more faults than I'm willing to share. I am a nut basket over here, if the truth be told. But I know that I have a pure heart to unleash the cruelty and the emotional assassinations of my men. Urban men need their day in the sun. Collectively, as a cultural entity, we are only as good as our men. Our men were born to lead, and the only reason why they are not leading is because they've been socially conditioned that they don't have the ability or capability to do so, which is completely bogus, which is the reason why our women are filling roles that they were not destined to fill, which is why their report card with regards to parenting suck. I wouldn't have never realized collectively on a social level how deep it was had I not been part of the pool of parents that suck. Being part of the non-custodial sucky parent crew, and I have to say, it took me a while to even find a funny gesture to even relate to the shame and the guilt that I was feeling I'm a mom. And I can't say that, a sucky parent is a sucky parent, whether you're a mom or a dad, but a mom. Like, I pushed the babies out. I was the one who felt them for 9 months, kicked my rib, and send me send me into pain that I don't even have words to describe. But had I not been part of the sucky crew, never ever would I have softened with my judgment against my own parents. Never ever in a million years would I had just forgave them and allowed that judgment to relieve itself organically. No, I had to feel what they were feeling. I had to be the unjust bad guy. I had to see what it felt like to have your kids dismiss you like you mean nothing because they think you think they don't mean anything. I had to stand in the truth of wanting to say, you got it all wrong. I'm not on, other than, my advocacy for woodstocking, I ain't on nothing hard. I am not an addict of any type of synthetic, man-made substance at all. Nothing. I am addicted to heartache. That's what I'm addicted to. I am addicted to self-inflicting sabotaging. Those are the things that I'm addicted to. So I'm not out of my mind or off my rocker when it comes to if I would do something very harmful outside of what's mentally damaging, emotionally off. Yeah, I'm gonna end it there because I think my mind was getting ready to take it somewhere else, and we've already done an hour. And I, like I say, the Coach's Chronicle is my semi, get it off my chest moments. I'm thinking like maybe like within the week or so, I'll be back on track where I will begin to video the more formal levels of directing knowledge. So, I think that's it. I think that's it for now. Please continue to move toward yourself, to know yourself and identify your strength. And we all have weakness. We all have weakness. Understanding how to stand in your truth without judging. We do a lot of judging. We are Americanized. The main thing we know how to do is misjudge something. But according to my divine legend, my Heavenly Father says, not only am I not to judge you, but I'm not even supposed to judge me. It's above my pay grade as a human being. Because in order to judge you, then that means that I am not relating to the flaws that I have. And that's not the way that goes. We are supposed to bring each other up in strength. Know thyself, identify your strength, and the only way you can do that is to begin to collect data and analyze who you are. On the blog, DCUrbanMentors.blogspot.com, you will find the links to begin collecting data on yourself so that through our time together, either you're hanging out, speaking of which, Breakfast of Champions. Breakfast of Champions. We're going to begin to be meeting on a regular basis for either breakfast or for lunch. At some point, you need to experience that. So between the videos and the lessons and the lunch and learns, or the networking events, whatever it is that we will do on the club level, should prepare you and begin to groom you and guide you to better know yourself, to identify your strengths, and then teach others to do the same thing, or educate others, or groom others, or guide others to do the same thing. Only through that mechanism do I believe the domino effect, or it will become infectious. We need this impact to become infectious. So sometimes I'll be wondering, like, because I say mentoring, or because I say coaching, or because I say leading, like, are those terminologies a little too formal? Is that the reason why I am getting such resistance? See, there's a question. See, once you start to talk it out, your questions are going to come up. They're going to reveal themselves, whether you ask yourself the question or someone else asks you the question. So now I'm destined. I'm on a quest to find the answer to if those words, if the keywords, if the terminology that I am using is a little too formal for what it is that we are setting out to do. Well, maybe I'll touch base on that in the next segment. In the meantime, I am asking you to please seek to know yourself. Seek to know thyself. Identify your strength. Be blessed. Strive for brilliance. Namaste.